Hey guys, it's Kemi here, my review for the Fear Street trilogy. So what the basic premise of Fear Street is essentially about is basically we focus on these two different towns. One of them is called Sunnyside, which basically, it's like this perfect town where everyone's really rich, it's very safe, there's rarely any crime that happens over there. And then on the flip side, you have Shadyside, which is the main town that we do end up focusing on, and this basically is known as like the murder capital of the United States. There has been so many massacres that can trace all the way back to the mid 1600s pretty much, and everyone is constantly making fun of this town. They don't take it seriously. They're always blamed for, Shadyside and things like that. And basically one day this group of teenagers end up witnessing, one of the murders that go down. They realize that it is starting up again and that they are going to be the next few victims if they do not act quickly and hopefully find out who is behind all of the brutal murders that have plagued this town for centuries. So the Fear Street trilogy, I was very excited for this. Not just because of the fact that, it's, a horror movie on Netflix and R.L. Stine's behind it. That's really cool because, R.L. Stine grew up with Goosebumps, but I don't think anyone ever watched Goosebumps thinking it was scary. I think they more just like the fun of it all. So the fact this was going to be a little more adult, that really did excite me. But also the fact that this was going to be like a full-on trilogy just dropped onto Netflix for the first 3 weeks of July. And I thought the prospect of that was really cool. I've never really seen anything quite like that before, so I was very excited to see how it was going to turn out. I did wait until all 3 of them came out just so I could kind of binge them all. I watched them with my girlfriend, and for some reason I've not got around to reviewing it until now. And obviously I could have reviewed all of these individually, but I thought it would have just made more sense to review this as a trilogy considering that they did come out so closely to each other, so I'm going to go about it that way. But I did in fact watch the entire trilogy, and I have to say I was very pleased with the way this trilogy turned out. This is easily one of the most ambitious, but also one of the most fun horror trilogies that I have seen in quite a bit, that I really do think is going to go down as an essential viewing for people, whether it's, during Halloween, during the summer. I think in general it is one of the most entertaining and fun things that I have seen from anything TV movie-wise throughout the year, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but we are just going to try now, starting off with the cast. And by far, that is one of the best aspects of this entire series. I think that just in general, this franchise would not work as well as it did if it wasn't for the cast here, all of which are just so fun and charming to watch. I think everyone just does such a fantastic job here, but the big standout has to be that of Kiana Madeira, who, let me talk about her, because this is someone that, I did see her in the show Sacred Lies. I was not a big fan of her on that show very much at all. I thought she was really overdoing it, but here, I really love what she ended up doing as the character of Dina. Dina is very much the skeptic in the film. She doesn't believe in any of what's going on, but she's also very jaded and sort of sardonic in that way. She has a very interesting way of looking at things, and she really does go through a lot of growth throughout these 3 films, starting off, like I said, as someone that doesn't really believe any of this bullshit, just kind of thinks that a lot of it is a myth and that their town is just sort of cursed in that way, and it's kind of looked at in that way. But then as the story goes on, she starts to believe it a lot more, but she also has a lot going on within her past as well, and I really liked what they ended up doing with her. I thought she did a really strong job in this role. It's a very emotionally effective performance, but especially part 3 when she eventually gets to play Sarah Fear, because part 3 is very much a backstory of sorts. She really impressed me. They're going from someone like Dina Johnson, this person who, like I said, is very emotionally devoid. She doesn't like to share it a lot. She is very passive in that way, to someone like Sarah Fear, who is a lot more emotional and has a lot going on. I mean, I just thought she did such a great job throughout both of these films. I really did enjoy her performance here. She carried it very nicely, and I think her performance alone is enough a reason to really watch these films, because it really did prove me wrong. She proved that she can be a much more capable actress than I've given her credit for, and I really do hope moving forward that she is able to take on more roles like this one, because she absolutely does have it in her, and I really did like what she ended up doing in these films. But the other performance I really do want to talk about here is Olivia Scott Welch, who does play the character of Sam Fraser, who Sam's the kind of character that I think could be really cliche. You know, she's someone that is from Sunnyside. People really look up to her. You know, people see her as this really just sort of perfect and beautiful woman, object of everyone's affections, but there's a lot more going on with her than you would think. There's a lot of secrets that she's withholding, and I really did like getting into that, and especially when you start to dive deeper into her past with Dina's character. I thought the two of them had really good romantic chemistry. A big part of these films is the relationship between Dina and Samantha, and Welch really does kill it here. I really liked how affected she was by everything. She plays a pretty major role throughout this entire trilogy, and I thought that she just did such a strong job here. I really enjoyed her performance in this film. The other performance, though, I really want to highlight, though, is Ashley Zukerman, who I can't say too much about his performance, but he plays Sheriff Nick Good, and there's not a lot going on with him in the first part. He's very much just like the police sheriff, and he's kind of stubborn. He doesn't want to believe a lot of what's going on. He doesn't seem to be really helping these characters out very much. But there's a lot going on with him. We dive a lot deeper into his past, and when we do, Zuckerman's performance becomes that much more impressive. I really loved what he ended up doing here, whether he's playing Nick Good or Solomon Good, who legitimately terrified me. I thought he did such a great job at playing both of these characters. I haven't really seen him too much before, but I really liked what he ended up doing in these films. I thought he was definitely a big standout. And then really just the rest of the cast. I mean, everyone does such a strong job, whether it's Sadie Sink, who is in part 2 and does a really strong job at, I think, playing the character of C. Berman. I really liked what she ended up doing. Benjamin Flores Jr. really impressed me. He's a lot of fun. Julia Rehwald and Fred Hechinger I also really enjoyed. Darell Britt Gibson is so much fun in these roles. He's kind of just like starts off as like the janitor, but there's a lot more going on with him besides that, and I really liked his character quite a bit. I thought he was definitely a lot of fun. Really, Gillian Jacobs is really strong too. Really, just this entire cast, I think everyone really does kill it. You can tell that everyone is having so much fun throughout these roles, and I think just in general, it is one of the best parts of this entire trilogy. But now I gotta get to the directing here, which is some of the best I have seen all year. Leigh Janiak is not a name that I am all that familiar with, but after these films, I think we very much will be, because the style and just the overall presence that she brings to these films, I think, is really what makes them as good as they are. I mean, she really does bring out very familiar styles to some of them, but what I really do appreciate about her directing is that it doesn't feel like she's copying off of other films. I've heard people say this, but I never really felt like that was the case. She's very much paying homage to them, but she does have her own specific style, and it's one that I think is really well done, and I really enjoyed what she ended up doing here. There's a lot of points where, you know, these films can be a lot of fun, and I really did find myself getting into them, but then there are points where it has a sense of heart to it, a very palpable sense of heart, and I think a lot of that is due to Janiak's directing, and that's something I really did appreciate. But something else I really liked about her is that she really does challenge herself throughout these 3 films. Every single one of them has a different tone to them. The first one is very evocative of, like, Scream or something that Wes Craven did back in either the 80s or the 90s, and she does a really good job at paying tribute to that. 1978 is very much like an homage to Friday the 13th, and I thought that was also really well done. You know, she really got to show her knack for campiness, what she can really do with slasher films. That's something I really enjoyed. And then 1666, though, once you get to that, it's a lot more of like an atmospheric sort of art house type horror film, and that's when she really gets to show her versatility. Yes, obviously they're all horror, but they're all directed very distinctively, and you almost forget that it's the same person directing all three of these movies, and I really do applaud her for that, because it can be really hard to direct one film and maintain a consistent tone, let alone directing three and having such different tones throughout all of them, but still making it feel consistent, still having it feel like it's part of the same franchise. I mean, she does such a great job with that. I think she helms this franchise so well, and I really hope she takes on more horror stuff like this, in the future, because she definitely does have it in her for sure. I really love what she ended up doing here, but the writing as well of these films, I think, are really well done, because, like I said, you will definitely see some parallels throughout these films, whether it's 1994. Very much does feel like Scream at points. In fact, many points they are directly paying homage to it. You can tell they are trying to allude to something similar to Scream. 1978, they are directly trying to allude to Friday the 13th. But I think what works so well when it comes to the writing is that you're still so invested in what's going on, because this is a film that, while it is very scary, it cares just as much about the characters that inhabit it. And I think that's very important, because we have to give a shit when these characters die, when things are not going their way. And thankfully, when it comes to the writing, we really do here, especially part one. They give a considerable amount of time to really get you to care about these characters. When it comes to Dina and her relationship with Sam and sort of what ended up happening there, they're not necessarily on great terms right now. And you can see that Dina blames herself for a lot of what's happened, and she's never really lost that love for Sam in that way, and I really enjoyed what they ended up doing when it came to their story. I think that is absolutely the heart and soul of this film. You really do find yourself latching onto these two characters, and also Sam, someone that is going through a very difficult situation in her life, because she is, in fact, a lesbian, but she doesn't really know how to talk to people about it, because that will ruin her image. That will ruin the way that people really do see her. And so you can see why she is so conflicted with that throughout this film. You can also see how it really does complicate her relationship with Dina. And I thought that relationship alone, they did such a great job of, again, really latching you onto those two characters and giving you enough of a reason to really care. So when shit really does start to hit the fan and the plot kicks in more, you are that much more invested in what's really going on, and I thought they did a great job with that. Other characters I really liked is the character of Josh, Dina's brother. He is a conspiracy theorist of sorts, and he is very much obsessed with Sarah Fier and all of this stuff, and I thought his character was going to get really annoying, but thankfully that wasn't ever the case for me. I thought they did a really good job of getting us to latch onto his character, giving us a reason to care. I really liked him a lot. This duo of Kate and Simon as well, these drug dealers that we come across, are a lot of fun. I really enjoyed what they provided throughout these films, so I think they do a good job with that in part one, but that still goes for parts 2 and 3 as well. Part 2, we have a really good storyline with these two sisters, and really kind of latching on to their relationship. They are sort of in a place where one of them is very rebellious, but the other one is a lot more responsible, and she has to take care of her sister and things like that, and they're sort of going through, their own sort of loss with their mom recently passing away, and I really enjoyed what they ended up doing in terms of that story. And then part 3, Sarah Fier, they really do a great job throughout these 3 films of building up the world, you know, really getting us to understand how dire this really is. I mean, this is not an isolated incident, what's going on in 1994. This is a series of very catastrophic and very traumatic events that have happened within this town. It's happened for decades, and so when we finally get to see it explored in 1666, it feels that much more satisfying. It feels like, all right, we're finally getting a chance to really kind of peel back the layers and really see how this whole thing really started, and it just kind of fills in the it kind of just like you know, fills in the boxes perfectly. You really do get a sense of like why this happened. Why is the town undergone such constant misery? You really do understand throughout this series, and I think they do a really great job with that. So I think simultaneously they do a great job when it comes to the character building, but also the world building. Both of those things are very important, and they really do excel at both of them throughout this series. And I think that's something I was very impressed with the writing. And even when characters do eventually die, you know, I felt generally sad. I was like, no, there's no way they're gonna go for it, and they absolutely do. I mean, this film does not hold back at all when it comes to the violence here. They are very, you know, they really do take their time, though, and that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't say these films are all-out slashers, because while characters do die, it actually does take a while for that to happen. Like I said, I think these films are much more character focused than you're expecting, and I really did enjoy that when it came to the screenplay overall. Also, just seeing the conflict between Sunny Side and Shady Side, what this means to all of the characters, all of that is just presented very well, and I really did enjoy a lot of the writing here. But then when you also get to part 3, there's like a new layer that is explored, and there's some new details, and it goes into this direction that kind of recontextualizes the entire franchise, and it's one of those things where it could have come across as very much just coming out of left field, something that just feels a little unearned. But I felt that they did such a great job of subtly building this up, not really, you know, trying to throw in your face that this is what they're really doing, that this is sort of the story that they're focusing on. But once you realize what's actually going on here, what the real message of this series is, it brings about a whole new meaning and gave me so much more respect for what they really were doing throughout these 3 films, because I didn't realize that's what they were leading to, and I think it's that much more effective as a result. So I really enjoyed the screenplays throughout these films. I think Leigh Janiak, you know, Zach Olkiewicz, I think that, you know, Kate Trefry, all of them, Phil Graziadei, all of them do such a great job when it comes to the writing here, and I think that is absolutely one of the standout elements of all 3 of these films. But let's get into cinematography, because oh my god, talk about a film that just sets its atmosphere so well. Like I said, all 3 of these films take place in different decades, and I thought that was definitely a smart choice to go about it, because each one of them, while they are a part of the same franchise, they all kind of feel like they can be their own thing as well. You can enjoy them as, you know, something as a part of a larger story, but you can also enjoy them on their own. And I think the cinematography is a big reason for that. You know, when we're in the 90s, you feel like you're there. Same with the 70s, and then 1666, things are a lot darker, and it's filmed a lot differently. And I think they did a really great job when it came to the cinematography. They each have their own specific style and look and feel to it, and I really did enjoy that. And it's pretty crazy to me that I'm pretty sure all of them are the same cinematographer, but again, similar to Leigh Janiak, it's kind of seamless. Like, you would not be able to predict that. And I really do admire Heyman's, you know, knack for just, you know, the shots in this film. His knack for, you know, shooting film. He really does show how good he is. And I really did enjoy a lot of the cinematography here. But let's talk about the scares in this movie, because obviously that's something that a lot of people are going to wonder about. Are these films scary? For me, hell yeah. I mean, I definitely was very creeped out by a lot of things going on within these films. There are a lot of really well done horror sequences. Just the opening scene alone of part 1, I think, is really well put together. It's very slow moving, but it's done in a way where you really are on the edge of your seat. You really do feel like you're there with these characters, and I thought they did a really good job in terms of a lot of the atmospheric horror here, but also the killings. I mean, holy shit, when they occur, they do not even try to, like, waste these killings. I mean, this is not one of those franchises where they'll just kill everyone because they want a big body count. No, they want these killings to mean something, and there is one in part 1 especially that I mean it when I say you're never gonna forget. Like, and this is why I really do think this is going to be a classic trilogy. It's just for this killing alone in part 1. I was shocked that they went as far as they did and that they showed as much as they did, but they fucking go for it, and I really do admire that. I love it when horror films aren't afraid to be really gory, aren't afraid to really show how much they can push the boundaries in that way. I think it adds so much in terms of atmosphere. It adds so much in terms of scares, and I really did appreciate this film for doing that overall, so I really did enjoy a lot of the scares here. There also are quite a few characters here that we see, one of which, the character of Ruby Lane. I mean, anytime she came up, she scared the ever-living shit out of me. All this character does is she pops up, she sings the same, like, creepy little ditty every single time, and it is, like, bone-chilling. Every single time she entered the screen, I would, like, tense up. I had no idea what was going to happen, because you know what this character is capable of, and I thought they did a really good job at really presenting these creatures. Every single one of these films, I think, has a memorable figment of some sort. I think there is some spirit in each of these films that you are never going to forget, and I think that's something they did a really good job with, so I really do enjoy a lot of this cinematography here. I think these films are very well shot. Let's get to the score, because, oh my god, I mean, that's something that I think I also really do admire. Marco Beltrami actually did do the score to all of these films, and it really does show just how good of a composer he is. Yeah, this is the guy that did do Scream, and they honestly could not have picked someone better to compose these films, because, I mean, he really does have a sense of, you know, he really does add to the tension. He really does add to the thrills here, and I really did enjoy what he did in terms of his composition for these films. In each one of them, he has someone else that composes them with him. The first one being Brandon Roberts, the second one being Marcus Trump, and the third one being Brandon Roberts, and the third one being Anna Drew Pig, and I think all three of them, you know, have their own specific sound, but I think it's part 1 that really does stick out. It really did feel like it was ripped right out of, like, the 90s. It really feels like no time has really passed when it comes to Beltrami's, you know, composing, and I really enjoy what he did here. But I also want to talk about 1666's score, because it's completely different from those first two films. It's a lot more atmospheric, it's a lot more haunting in that way, and I really did appreciate that. Like I said, I think each one of these films, while they are part of a larger story, you can also enjoy them on their own, and I think a big reason for that is because of the score. I think it gives the film a life of its own, and that's something else that I really did appreciate. So I really did enjoy the score in this film, and the editing. The decision to make this 3 films, I think, is definitely the right one. I've heard some people say that maybe this should have just been a television series, but I think it really does work as 3 films, because, I mean, think about this. You really are getting to see what normally would be like 3 years worth of, you know, story for a franchise. You get to see it all in just a few weeks, or if you're binging it now, I mean, you can literally watch it in like a day. Like, that's insane to me, and I thought it was definitely the right move to make this a trilogy. I felt like every single entry, all 3 of them, there was another piece of the puzzle that was, you know, explored. There was something else that we, you know, really did put together. I didn't really feel like there was anything that didn't need to be there, and I thought they did a really good job with that overall. That being said, while I really do admire this trilogy a lot, it's not necessarily perfect. I do think there are a couple things that do bring it down. A lot of it does have to do with part 2. Part 2, I think, is generally the weakest of the 3. And I think the biggest reason for it for me is just because I think there's a lot of characters in that film that just end up feeling a little bit inconsequential at the end of the day. Ryan Simpkins' character especially, we focus a lot on her. I just didn't see the point of her character. I liked her. I didn't like her at first, but as it went on, I really did start to like her. And then when I was finally starting to like her character, they just decided to not do much with her. And I felt that her character overall just felt kind of pointless. So I wish that they could have maybe done a little bit more with that character. There's quite a few characters in that installment that I just felt just didn't really serve much of a purpose, whereas I think the other entries, each one of these characters had a specific purpose to them, had something memorable about them, and I didn't really feel that was the case for everyone in part 2. I really liked the sisters a lot, but everyone else I didn't latch on to as much, and I think they could have done a better job when it came to that overall. I think that was something that did overall bring things down for me, and I will say I do think part 1 did drag at first. The first 20 to 30 minutes, I do think it started to drag a little bit, but I think once the story really kicks in, I think it gets really strong, and I think from there, I mean, it is just an absolute thrill ride, and I found myself so drawn to a lot of what was going on. So, and I will say there is one character in here that there's something that is hinted at in part 3, and you think you're gonna get this really great confrontation. I'm like, oh my god, you know, everything is on the line here, this is what we've been waiting for, and then it just kind of happens, and I wasn't particularly satisfied with the way they wrapped that storyline up. It just didn't really go in line with what we were setting up, but everything else was so good, I really couldn't complain all that much. The way this actually does wrap up, I think is probably the most satisfying conclusion we could have gotten to this franchise, and I think overall they did a really good job with that, so I really don't have too many complaints when it comes to this trilogy overall. I mean, overall, I really can't sing the praises of this enough. I think this is a very unique thing that Netflix ended up releasing. The fact that we have 3 films here, and really each of them feel very distinctive in their own way, but all of them really do a great job of paying homage to horror films that we know, whether it's Scream, whether it's Friday the 13th, whether it's something like, say, The Witch. I think they do a really good job of, you know, really making these feel like a time capsule, but also really making them feel like something of their own. The performances here are very strong. Kiana Madeira, Olivia Welch, and Ashley Zukerman, I think, definitely are the big standouts throughout this entire trilogy. It's generally scary. There are many moments that very much did have me very tense with what was going on, but it also can be a lot of fun. I think there's a really good mix there, and a very strong breakout directing from Leigh Janiak, who I am positive after this film is going to really be something special. We're going to be seeing a lot more from her after this, and whether that's going to be, you know, more Fear Street, which I am hearing they're going to do more. They definitely could do more. There's definitely some things that they didn't explore as much that I would have liked to see, or if that's going to be something different, I will definitely be all here for it, because I really do think this trilogy is something special. This is a must-watch, I think, for everyone. I think it's been a very dry summer overall in terms of movies, particularly for horror movies, but I think Fear Street is one of the most ambitious and special releases in quite a bit. I cannot recommend this trilogy enough, so I am going to I am going to rate each one individually, and then I'm going to give my overall score for this trilogy. So for part 1, 1994, I'm going to give that one an A-. Part 2, I would give a B, and part 3, I have to give an A. I think it is nearly perfect in that way with the way it's put together, but overall, I would give this trilogy an A-. But over, guys, to my review of the Fear Street trilogy. Let me know what you guys thought of this trilogy overall. Left your thoughts in. I know, like a lot of things, I'm late on talking about this, but trust me when I say if you have not seen this trilogy, I really can't think of a better time to start it. I feel like this is kind of like the ideal trilogy for, you know, spooky season, for something to watch around October. I think this is a really good one to do for sure. There aren't a lot of really great horror franchises out there, and this is definitely one of the best I've seen in quite a bit, so I definitely recommend this one. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.